Anyway, joining us now, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, I think the star of the night, absolutely, positively, is a governor by the name of Sarah Sanders.
Well, I think Sarah did a terrific job, and it was a sharp contrast to a State of the Union speech that I thought was divisive. It was angry, it was out of touch, and it was fundamentally dishonest. Throughout the speech, Biden would periodically just scream out randomly. He reminded me of a crotchety old guy on his front porch screaming at the kids, "Get off my lawn." And it was deliberately dishonest. It was designed. You know, Biden could have taken this moment to acknowledge we just had an election. The American people elected a Republican majority. The American people are unhappy with the direction of this country. 2/3 of the American people believe we're on the wrong track. Inflation's out of control. Crime's out of control. The southern border's out of control. He could have acknowledged all that and said we're going to change course. He didn't do that. He doubled down on the same failed policies. And let me focus on three of the most dishonest things he said. Number one, he stood up and said, support my plan to secure the border and to stop fentanyl. And literally the chamber began laughing because Joe Biden made a political decision to have open borders. The result is the worst illegal immigration in the history of our country and the worst fentanyl crisis this country has ever faced, with over 100,000 overdoses each year. And he doesn't intend to change that, and yet he's claiming he wants to secure the border. A second big lie he had was when he said that the world knows now that the Biden White House, and he's tough on China. You know, Sean, as you pointed out, the whole world just finished laughing at the president when for over a week a Chinese spy satellite, a spy balloon, conducted espionage on our military bases while the president impotently wrung his hands and did nothing. And then finally, you mentioned this lie as well when he demagogued on Republicans want to take away Social Security and Medicare. It's the classic Democrat lie. They're going to throw Granny off the cliff. Again, the entire chamber, at least half the chamber, began laughing because it's fundamentally false. We should be strengthening and preserving Social Security and Medicare. But I'll tell you, when Biden stood up and said, we're going to stand up for seniors, there is no group in America who has been hurt more under Joe Biden than seniors. With rampaging inflation, the cost of rent and food and electricity skyrocketing, seniors are getting hammered and their retirement has dropped 20 or 30%. For him suddenly to claim to be a champion of seniors is profoundly out of touch with the failures of his policies.
Let's talk about being out of touch, Senator. Marist poll points out a full 62% of Americans think the State of the Union is not very strong or not strong at all. That's Marist. Then move over to Washington Post, ABC. It's the same number. 62% of Americans say the president has not achieved much during his first 2 years in office. Then turn to CBS and their poll by more than 3-1, 41% to 13% of Americans say the state of the nation is weak as opposed to strong. And if you go back to October of last year, 52% of Democrats were asked, do you want Joe Biden to seek a second term? 52 said yes. It is now down to 37. Will the Democratic Party try to dump Joe Biden in 2024?
So I think they will. I don't think Joe Biden will be the Democrat nominee. I think Democrats recognize he's too old. And his policies have failed. If you look at the last 2 years, the extreme policies, the trillions in spending that have fueled massive inflation, the soft on crime, abolish the police, Democrats who've caused the crime spree, or the abusive policies. You know, every senator is given the opportunity to invite one guest to the State of the Union. My guest tonight was Lieutenant Levi Beard. Lieutenant Beard has been in the Navy for 10 years. He's a sailor who last year Joe Biden and the Biden administration tried to fire him because he declined to get the COVID vaccine. And Lieutenant Beard won in a federal court injunction against being fired. But right now, the Biden administration is persecuting him. They're litigating against him. They're trying to force him to repay $200,000 in the cost of his postgraduate Naval War College studies and his bonus, all because of this abusive and now illegal vaccine mandate. And, you know, in the entire speech, Joe Biden didn't once speak to the thousands of soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines and Coast Guardsmen that he fired, that he mistreated. Not a word for them.
All right, Senator Cruz, I'd like to meet your guest one day. We appreciate you being with us and staying to play with us tonight. All right.